So what I'm briefly going to do is just talk about what we're doing in Tasmania, trying to explain the landscape of Tasmania within a biblical framework. Some of our regular viewers would be familiar with the fact that we've been going out finding fossils across Tasmania. This is where we're up to now, so we've advanced quite a bit since we first started reporting this. These are actual sites that we've been to and confirmed fossil sites. All the blue ones are marine fossil sites, so marine creatures. There's a few green ones in there that are plant fossils. So they're found right across Tasmania, and there's no question at all that Tasmania's been completely covered with water. This is one that I've just gone and done in the last 2 weeks. Haven't reported on it on this show previously, so I thought I'd just quickly show very typical of what we're finding in what's classified as Permian fossils. Some pecten shells there, Stenopora, which is a bryozoan coral, and some brachiopods there. That's in the centre part there at Bothwell at about 450 metres elevation. So the question is, how do these fossils get to that sort of elevation in the middle of the state? These marine fossils that have clearly been living in the ocean. This is a map showing with the black circles sites that we haven't been to but are known to have fossils from the literature, and we're going to go and hopefully visit most of those at some point. Obviously, the ones further away from us are the ones that are a little bit harder to get to regularly, but we'll try and... sorry, that's a phone guy from the background. So those sites are all pretty well marine sites as well, and it's not completely, all of the sites that are out there, of course. This is from a local museum, the Queen Victoria Museum, and that map there is just basically showing that the general scientific community accepts that Tasmania has been underwater. The dark blue there on the eastern part of Tasmania is showing as deep a sea in this particular time frame. So they're saying this is millions of years ago. And the greyer part is shallow sea in the western sort of half. We basically believe that that's all been part of the global inundation at the time of Noah, and we'll just talk about that in a moment. So this is part of the simplified presentation of what Tasmania's got in a large part of Tasmania, not all of it, but a large part of it. We've got the base rock there, and there's a huge layer of mudstone and then sandstone in a lot of places over the top of that. This mudstone sandstone deposit is thought to have been up to 2 kilometres or even more thick. These are what we would call flood sediments, primarily flood sediments. This is a map from a paper that I found that shows what is classified as Permian deposits, Permian mudstone and shales across Tasmania. This is where they're exposed, but the actual layer is believed to be that, and that's quite a large area when you consider that Tasmania is the better part of 100,000 square kilometres. So how do we get the landscape that we've got to in Tassie? Well, the secular geologists, the scientific community, believe that dolerite intrusions have come from deep in the mantle, gone along through cracks in the sedimentary layers, spread out. These are huge layers, so it's believed that the entire central plateau of Tasmania was from one dolerite intrusion like this, and that has lifted up a lot of the areas of Tassie, and that there's been massive erosion and faulting through that. That's removed most of the sandstone above the dolerite, not all, but most of it. And we're going to look at where did all that sediment go. And this is the resulting landscape. So you have a pushed up mountain with dolerite on the top. It's faulted, that's faulted up, and there's been faults downwards as well, a downward displacement of the landscape, and you're left with dolerite-capped hills and dolerite-capped mountains, various valleys where you've got exposures. In the blue, you can see the exposures of mudstone that you come across. That's where we find quite a few fossils, and the brown sandstone as well. And then this is just showing this scree can fall down off the dolerite over the brown sediments there, and you've got features called organ pipes, which are fracturing of the dolerite volcanic rock as a result of the ice and snow in the ice age that followed the flood. Within a couple of hundred years after the flood, there's been the ice age, and that certainly covered Tasmania, fractures those rocks. And we're just going to have a look at some of these dolerite mountains on a video just in a moment. But here's a cutting, or actually a quarry in the side halfway up one of these mountains, showing how the dolerite volcanic boulders, the scree they're called, has tumbled down off the mountain and has come over the top of the sedimentary layers behind one of our fossil hunting crews standing there. That's in the centre of Tasmania. Now, dolerite is called the rock which makes Tasmania by an expert in dolerite whose name is David Lehman. Wrote a book by that name, Dolerite, the Rock Which Makes Tasmania. Covers 22% of our land area, but it actually has 40% if you include that which is just underneath the surface at a shallow depth. So therefore, it's about 30,000 square kilometres. So Tasmania is basically regarded as the leading place in the world where you find dolerite. But an interesting little fact on it, dolerite's called deceitful stone. So some of these evolutionary scientists that believe it's been there from millions of years ago, largely in what they would call the Jurassic period, over 100 million years ago, I believe that has deceived them, and it's all a result of fast processes which they actually accept. So we're just going to see a very brief video showing some of these features from our walk up on the Walls of Jerusalem National Park. Joe, if you can just play that now. So that was up on the Walls of Jerusalem on the central plateau of Tasmania. You can see the dolerite-dominated mountain tops, and they are throughout Tasmania. But here's a sandstone remnant. This is on the east side of a mountain called the Temple, and there's a sandstone remnant. It's the only patch of sandstone we saw like that on our 2-day walk, and I went down and had a closer look at it. The black arrow down on the map there is showing roughly where we're looking in Tasmania. This is the side of the mountain with the sandstone, and that's just showing the layering in it. So it's definitely sedimentary rock, but that's been laid down and according to not just us, but according to the evolutionary scientists, that has been laid down by ocean events. These dolerite intrusions, however, are believed, even by secular science, to have occurred very, very quickly. This is a quote from Keith Corbett, a geological expert in Tasmania, who says this: it's been estimated that the emplacement of one of the major sheets, pretty sure he's referring to the central plateau there, may have been accomplished in a matter of weeks. And another well-known science writer in Tassie, Peter Grant, said this about the dolerite: geologists believe that the massive upwelling of subsurface dolerite here in Tasmania may have been so sudden as to be noticed by humans, had any existed at that time. Our imaginary proto-humans living at sea level in this region may have found the ground around them elevated by as much as 600 metres over a period of years, perhaps even months, which is an incredible admission, really. And of course, there were humans alive at that time. They just happened to be floating in a big boat full of animals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is all over Tasmania. This is another mountain, the one circled in red there in the southern central part of Tasmania that our fossil hunting group went and explored, called Mount Mueller. It's quite a high peak, well over 1,000 metres, dolerite poking up through it. And here's a lake there, and it's called Fossil Lake. There's sedimentary marine fossils at 1,000 metres right here in the centre part of Tasmania. So all of the sandstone, if it was there in this particular place, above this has gone. And this is left with sort of mudstone fossils. But where's the sandstone gone if it was over in this part? And we certainly know it was in other parts of Tasmania. Well, these are just some of the fossils before we get to that, showing catastrophic dumping. They're all mixed up. Permian fossils, bryozoans there. It's catastrophic dumping of marine sediments. This map is showing where some of the major drainage systems are in Tasmania. We're going to concentrate on the northern part, which drains a very large proportion of Tasmania. And this is accepted by the general science community that they've drained off into a basin called the Bass Basin, which is a faulted basin. It's a rift valley that's faulted and dropped and continued to drop, apparently. And it's massive. It's 10,000 metres deep, so 10 kilometres deep, and has an estimated volume of 100,000 cubic kilometres, which in American terms is 24,000 cubic miles. And this is completely full of sediments, and it's got a lot of coal in it. So Joe's just told us that coal doesn't form slowly in swamps. But if you look at the centre, I don't know if my arrow is showing up on there, but this centre coloured geological stratum sort of map, you'll see the black parts are the coal layers, and these are as deep as 2.5, 3,000, over 3,000 metres down. This is very deep. It doesn't make sense to me that these have been gradually accumulated over time, rather that they've been buried catastrophically. And just look at the brown coloured strata there as well, and note in the key that that's claystone and silty claystone, which I think Joe and John would confirm is regularly associated with coal. That's obviously sediments.
Can you see the
next to the butler wasp?
Now we're just going to briefly go 1,000 kilometres north to my home territory where I grew up, to Newcastle, which is north of Sydney. And these are some photos from John, some of the work that he's done there. You get sediments in the cliff lines there on the edge of the coast, and there's volcanic ash, so volcanic activity is associated with it there as well. You've got the polystrate pine trees, and a profile, geological profile, shows the black bands there is coal. If you look closely on the right-hand side, you can see the claystone is there as well. So you've got very similar processes 1,000 kilometres north, and John would say that he's seen that, and he can confirm this, has seen that from Tasmania right through to northern Queensland. So this is a massive event. It's happened quickly. Even the dolerite uplift was very fast, as admitted by secular science. We just happen to believe that all of this event has taken place during the flood and in the post-flood period.